All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really zeroing in on indie games, specifically how crowdfunding has kind of, turned the whole scene upside down.
Yeah, for sure.
You've brought some super interesting stuff to look at, and I guess our mission, if you will, is to like really get how this whole funding thing is, like giving power to these indie creators
Absolutely.
and, shaping the games that we'll all be playing in the near future.
Yeah.
So we're going to, break down the mechanics of how crowdfunding works in this world, look at some like crazy successful examples and touch on, the realities, the challenge, the whole nine yards.
Wow.
And what's really fascinating is, and this is something that came up in what you've been looking at, is that crowdfunding isn't just, a way to get money.
Yeah.
It's like this major alternative to the traditional ways indie games got funded, back in the day.
Totally. It's really become a significant alternative, especially for, these indie teams that have these like super innovative ideas,
Yeah.
but maybe, resources are a bit limited.
Yeah.
And platforms like, Kickstarter, Indiegogo,
Yeah.
Patreon, they've basically created this direct line between, the people making the games and the people who want to play them.
Right.
It's not even just buying a product anymore. It's like, they're contributing to a vision.
Yeah.
And this whole shift has had a pretty huge impact on how games look, how games are made, the whole landscape.
Yeah, it's almost like a direct pipeline from the creators to the players.
Yeah.
And so with this deep dive, we want to get into like the nitty-gritty of how this direct funding is fueling creativity and really genuine innovation in these indie games.
Exactly.
So people listening can walk away with a clear picture of how some of their favorite games, or maybe games they'll love in the future, actually come to be. So let's start with just the basics, right? The power of the crowd.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in practice?
Okay, so the core of it's really pretty straightforward. A developer has a game idea, right? They put together a pitch.
Yeah.
This could be, early artwork, maybe some gameplay demos, whatever they have to show their vision for the game.
Right.
And then people like you, like the players, the potential players, they can pledge money to the project.
Uh-huh.
And in return, the developers usually offer like a bunch of different rewards.
Okay.
This could be anything from like a digital copy of the game when it comes out to, early access, in-game items, even your name in the credits, things like that.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty direct exchange of support for rewards.
Yeah, it's almost like pre-ordering, but way more involved.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you're actually impacting how the game gets made.
Absolutely.
And that leads to this really interesting thing, right? Like
Yeah.
the democratization of funding.
Yes.
So how does that actually work? How does this like bypass those traditional gatekeepers, the market pressures that, use to decide which games got made?
So think about it. Like in the old days, developers would pitch their ideas to publishers,
Right.
big companies. And those publishers, well, they got to think about trends. They got to think about profit and making sure they don't lose money.
They don't want to gamble too much.
Yeah, exactly. And that could sometimes lead to a lot of games feeling, kind of similar.
Samey.
Yeah, samey. But with crowdfunding, developers can go directly to the players.
Straight to the source.
Right. If there are people out there who are passionate about a specific type of game, a niche genre, a unique art style, they can band together and make it happen.
So the players become the publishers almost.
In a way, yeah. And that means there's no need to get approval from the big guys.
It's like the audience is casting a vote with their wallets before the game's even done. So what do you think that does for innovation?
Oh man. It's huge.
Yeah.
When developers don't have to answer to a publisher who's, always worried about the mass market.
Yeah.
They can experiment. They can try weird stuff, niche stuff that might be considered, too out there for the big companies.
Right.
And that can lead to some really groundbreaking games that push boundaries, that try new things that you just wouldn't see otherwise.
It's exciting to think about.
It is.
And, your sources actually highlighted some really amazing success stories that came out of this whole crowdfunding thing.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those.
Right.
Let's start with Undertale. What made its campaign and its like success so remarkable?
Undertale is a perfect example of this, this whole idea in action. It was made almost entirely by one guy, Toby Fox.
Wow.
and he got the funding through Kickstarter. And what's really interesting is his initial goal was pretty modest. It wasn't like, a crazy amount of money.
Right.
But the game ended up being this huge hit.
Yeah.
Critically acclaimed, commercially successful, the whole shebang.
People loved it.
Yeah. And it had this unique gameplay, right? Like you could choose to not fight enemies, to resolve things peacefully.
Interesting.
And the story, oh man. The story was so compelling, so emotional. It really connected with people.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. And what Undertale shows us is that a really innovative, well-made game, even if it's from a small team,
Mm-hmm.
can find an audience and make a big impact through crowdfunding.
Yeah.
And our sources even suggested that this direct relationship with the backers, it wasn't just about the money.
Right.
It was like an early form of market research,
How interesting.
Toby Fox could like refine his ideas
Right.
based on what the community was saying.
Oh, wow.
Something that traditional publishers don't usually do until much later.
So it's way more collaborative.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so then we have Shovel Knight.
Yes.
What lessons can we learn from its crowdfunding journey?
Well, Shovel Knight is interesting because, it was developed by Yacht Club Games, and they went for a different approach.
Okay.
Like they deliberately leaned into this nostalgia thing,
Ah, okay.
the 8-bit graphics, that classic retro look.
Yeah.
But they didn't just, rehash old ideas.
Right.
They mixed that aesthetic with really tight, polished gameplay.
Nice.
And there was a surprising amount of depth to it.
Really?
Yeah. And their crowdfunding campaign, it was super successful.
Wow.
It showed that there's a huge audience for games that, tap into that familiar feeling.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, but also offer something new and exciting. And Shovel Knight proved that an indie team using crowdfunding could make a game that's just as polished, just as good as anything from the big studios.
That's really cool. So it wasn't just a nostalgia trip.
No, it was a genuinely great game.
Yeah. And then we have Hollow Knight.
Right.
What does its story tell us about success in the indie scene?
Hollow Knight, this was from Team Cherry. It's a beautiful game, very atmospheric, a platformer in the Metroidvania style.
Okay.
So for people who don't know, Metroidvania games, they're all about exploration.
Okay.
You have this big interconnected world,
Right.
but you can't access everything right away.
Mm.
You got to find items, abilities to unlock new areas.
So it keeps you coming back.
Exactly. And Hollow Knight, it got a ton of praise for its art style.
Yeah.
It's really distinctive.
Yeah, it is.
And the world is just, it's so well designed, so intricate.
Yeah.
And the gameplay it's tough, but it's rewarding.
Makes you think.
Yeah, for sure. And its success through crowdfunding, again, it just shows that indie developers can go toe-to-toe with the big guys.
Yeah.
Not just with ideas, but with the quality, the scope of their games.
The scale.
Yeah. And a big part of Hollow Knight's success was how Team Cherry interacted with their backers.
Oh, okay.
They were really transparent. They engaged with the community, and that built a lot of excitement for the game.
So community is key.
It is. And a lot of times, these developers will release early demos.
Oh, right.
To get people excited, to get feedback.
Yeah.
But that's a tricky thing,
Yeah.
You got to show enough to get people interested, but not give away too much.
Right.
And the demo has to, work well.
Technically sound.
Exactly. If it's buggy or, unfinished, it can actually turn people off.
Makes them lose faith.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've seen these amazing successes.
Yeah.
But obviously there are challenges too, right?
Of course.
Like, what are some of the real world things that developers and even the backers need to be aware of when it comes to crowdfunding?
Well, one of the biggest things is managing expectations.
Oh.
When you're pitching a game idea, especially early on, it's easy to get carried away.
Yeah.
Both for the developers and the backers.
Everyone's excited.
Exactly. You start imagining all these features, these ambitious timelines, and it can be hard to actually deliver on all of that.
Overpromise.
Yeah. So staying realistic throughout the process and being really open and honest with the backers, that's super important.
Communication is key.
Yeah. Especially if there are, unexpected problems, delays, things like that.
Right.
You got to keep those lines of communication open.
Be upfront.
Yeah. Because if you're not transparent, people lose trust.
They feel misled.
Right. And we also have to be honest about the fact that, not every crowdfunded game is going to be a hit.
Some fail,
Yeah. Some don't reach their funding goals.
right?
Some get funded, but then, hit a wall during
I
development.
can't finish.
Yeah. And that's a risk for everyone involved.
Yeah.
The developers who might put years of work into a game that never sees the light of day.
Right.
And the backers who might not get the rewards they were promised.
That's going to be frustrating.
It is. And the truth is, going from a cool idea to a finished game, it's a lot more complicated than it might seem.
There are a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts.
So for someone listening who's, maybe thinking about making their own game and going the crowdfunding route,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them?
Well, the sources you provided, they actually have some really great tips.
Okay, good.
The first thing is you got to have a killer pitch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's your first impression, and you only get one shot.
Right.
So you need eye-catching visuals,
Okay.
concept art, mock-ups, maybe a really well-made video.
Something to grab people's attention.
Exactly. Got to communicate your idea clearly.
Yeah.
What's the game about?
Yeah.
Why is it unique? Why should people be excited to support it?
Make them feel it.
Yes. It's not just about the features. It's about connecting with people on an emotional level.
Right. Right. And what about the funding goals?
Setting realistic goals is crucial.
Okay.
I know it's tempting to, shoot for the moon and ask for a ton of money.
Yeah.
But if your goal is too ambitious, it can actually scare people away.
It seems unattainable.
Right. You got to figure out what's the absolute minimum you need to make a playable version of your game.
The core of it.
Yeah. And then you stretch goals for extra stuff,
Okay.
Once you hit that initial target, then you can start thinking about, adding more features, more content.
Makes sense.
And that shows people that, you've thought things through. You're not just throwing out a random number.
You have a plan.
Exactly. And another really important thing is engaging with the community.
Right.
Those backers, they're not just wallets.
Yeah.
They're invested in your game.
They're part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you got to keep them updated on how development is going.
Uh-huh. Respond to their comments, answer their questions.
Make them feel heard.
Yes. And you can even involve them in some decisions.
Oh, wow.
Like let them vote on, a minor character design or something.
Oh, that's cool.
It makes them feel like they're really a part of the process.
Yeah, like they're shaping the game.
Right. And of course, you gotta offer good rewards.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And the rewards should be related to the game.
Right.
Things that give backers a deeper connection to the project.
More than just a copy of the game.
Exactly. So things like, early access to builds, exclusive in-game items, maybe even the chance to contribute something to the game itself.
Oh, wow.
Like, designing a small character or something.
That's really cool.
It makes them feel like they're really a part of the process.
Yeah, like they're part of the team almost.
Yeah. And of course, as we talked about before, transparency is huge.
Right.
Being open about the good and the bad, the wins and the losses.
Exactly. It builds trust and it keeps your community supportive even when things get tough.
That's really good advice.
Hopefully.
Now beyond like the traditional crowdfunding platforms, are there any like out of the box strategies that the developers are using to get funding?
Yeah, and this is really cool to see.
Okay.
Developers are getting really smart about using social media.
Ah, makes sense.
They're working with influencers, YouTubers, streamers, people who, already have a big audience.
Yeah.
And by collaborating with these people, they can reach a much wider audience.
Get the word out.
Exactly. And some developers are doing these really cool interactive events online.
Oh, interesting.
Like live streams where they show gameplay, answer questions from the audience.
Oh, that's neat.
It's all about connecting directly with people, building excitement, and getting them invested in the game.
So it's all about building that community.
Absolutely.
Even before the game is out.
Exactly.
So as we wrap things up here, let's come back to the main point.
Okay.
How has crowdfunding fundamentally changed the world of indie games?
Well, I think it's safe to say that crowdfunding has been this incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah.
It's given indie developers a way to make their dream games a reality.
In a way they couldn't before.
Exactly. They don't have to rely on publishers anymore.
They can be independent.
Right. and they can connect directly with players, build a community, and create games that are truly unique, truly expressive.
That's amazing.
And ultimately, it's the players who are driving this whole thing.
Yeah.
By supporting these games, by being part of the community, they're helping to create a more diverse, a more interesting, a more vibrant gaming landscape for everyone.
It's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been fascinating to learn about all this.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
So for everyone listening out there, thinking about all these success stories, this connection between creators and players,
Yeah.
what kind of games do you think we might see in the future because of crowdfunding?
That's the question, isn't it?
What crazy, amazing experiences could be made possible?
I can't wait to find out.
And even more interesting, what role could you, the listener, play in bringing those games to life?
Exactly.
It's something to think about.
So sure.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a blast.
It has.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you then.